So your interview went well. You got offered the job. Now, what do you do to keep that job, right? Well, most of you already know you've got to work hard, right? You've got to be a hard worker to keep your jobs. But there's some other things you can do. You know, show a willingness to learn. Like, as an accountant, you are going to be a lifelong learner. If you have any certifications at all, you are going to be a lifelong learner because you're going to be required to complete continuing professional education every year, sometimes up to 40 hours. It's insane the amount of CPE that those of us that are certified in the accounting profession have to keep up with. So you've got to show you're willing to learn and you're willing to grow in your job. Don't just be happy being the bookkeeper. Tell them, I want to get to staff accountant and I want to get to senior accountant and I want to get to supervisor, manager, maybe one day partner. Show that you're willing to grow. Okay. You always want to have a positive attitude. I know that is not the easiest thing in the world. Even this job, which I absolutely love and I think is absolutely 100% amazing. There are still days where it's very hard to be positive about some things. I try my best to be. And if you're a student and you speak with me, I'm typically always going to be positive with you. Now, we may have to get down in the weeds and get a little honest with each other sometimes, but typically we try to keep it as positive as possible, and you need to do that in the professional world as well. Later in the semester, I believe we have a group project coming up. So you're going to have to learn to work well as a part of a team. That is a particular challenge with online students, specifically when you're online and you are asynchronous, meaning you guys don't meet at the same time. Some of you may be doing this work at midnight. Some of you may be doing it at 3 in the morning. But you're going to have to learn to work as part of a team, and that's why we have group projects, right? You're going to be working as part of a team, and throughout your professional career, you will constantly be working as a part of a team. You need to be able to identify problems. You need to be able to implement the solutions to those problems. That goes back to that STAR, right? The STAR interviewing method. This is exactly that. What's the situation? What's my goal? What should my task be? How did I accomplish that goal or task? And what was the result of that action, right? So being a proactive thinker is going to help you a ton in the world of accountancy. As accountants, this one's easy. Know the rules and follow them, right? As accountants, we're all about the rules. We're all about compliance. Some of you will find when you get out into the real world, you absolutely love compliance and performance auditing. That's what I love. I love nothing more than to go into somebody's office whose job I have no idea how to do and tell them they're doing their job wrong because they're not complying with whatever state statute exists. Okay? I can't help it. It's just who I am. So some of you will find that as well, that you really enjoy compliance audit. But you're going to have to know your company's rules. You're going to have to follow them. It is what it is. Anybody that's worked any kind of job, even if it is just fast food, working the grill, if you work at McDonald's, they have a uniform you have to wear. You have to be there at a certain time. You have to work for a certain amount of time, and you have to do certain things for cleaning standards, for running the registers, all that good stuff. So every company you work for is going to have rules, and you got to know them, and you got to follow them. Refrain from challenging or criticizing management. Yeah, you don't really want to challenge them. There's a reason in most cases these people are in management positions. Typically it's because they've done your job for a long time and they know what they're doing. That may not be the case in every job you have, but when you get to CPA firms, when you get into accounting departments, it's because they've done your job before, right? They know what's going on. I have found, though, that the best work environments are environments where your managers and your supervisors are okay with critique. Like I said, remember in the slide before, we said, hey, you've got to be able to take that critique well, handle rejections positively, take that critique well, right? And that applies to management and supervisors as well, I think. One of my favorite jobs I had was working at the state auditor's office. I worked with a gentleman there that was my in charge for almost every audit I worked, and he had absolutely no problem with me coming in and saying, hey, Jim, I think if we did it this way, it might be better. Or, hey, Jim, why are we doing it this way? But it wasn't me really critiquing him. It was me asking questions or proposing an implement or proposing a solution to a problem that I had identified, right? So do not make negative statements on social media. I've got an incredibly embarrassing story about this one. If anybody's ever interested in hearing it, I will definitely record a video kind of telling you what I did and why it was so, the polite word is dense of me to do. Um, but man, I don't even post anything on social media hardly anymore at all, simply because of that specific thing that happened. I just don't want employers, and especially now, students will look you up on Facebook, or I don't know if you guys use Facebook anymore, but they'll look you up, and I just don't want anything on there that I would have to like answer to, right? So just be careful on social media. It can be a death trap for you. Um, Really, they're going to evaluate you on a number of things. So almost everywhere you work, you're going to have a yearly evaluation that you have to go through. Typically where you work, you're going to have a 90-day evaluation as well. So that means after your first 90 days, once you get past that probationary period, they're going to do an evaluation. And a lot of what they will evaluate are going to be things that they've observed. So negative behaviors, positive behaviors. So they're going to tell you, hey, we think you're really, really good at lifting up your coworkers. You're very good at maintaining a positive outlook, even when something may seem like it's going to be a negative outcome. But what you don't want is them saying, hey, you're causing trouble because you've got a negative attitude and you're complaining about things constantly, right? So just be cautious of that. What could cause you to lose your job? Any number of things. If you are not performing up to standards or expectations, they're probably going to let you go. This is especially true for interns, right? This is like a trial run for you, right? Successful internships typically lead to offers of full-time employment, okay? So they're going to be monitoring you. This is a trial run for you, and if you're not performing to expectations or exceeding expectations, they're probably going to let you go. If you're not following directions, if you are not meeting deadlines and procrastinating too much, and this is a big one because as students, and I know this, I keep telling you guys, I used to be a student, I know how it is, you procrastinate. You wait till the day before or the day of to do your homework. You're not going to be able to do that in the real world, typically speaking. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and say I've never procrastinated on anything at work, because I absolutely 100% have. I mean, these videos are probably a pretty good example of that, right? We're a day late now, and I apologize for that. But I was sick this weekend, and I didn't do it, right? So, but try not to procrastinate. I try to be honest with you guys, and you know, it's something that everybody does occasionally. And I used to be that guy that was like, oh, I work better under pressure. I write better papers and better research when I'm up to the last minute. But I have found over the years that it's actually much better to just not be stressed about it. So don't procrastinate. Try to meet your deadlines. Emails and phone calls are huge. Just go with the 24-hour rule, right? If you get an email, try to respond within the first 24 hours. And if you know it's going to take you more time than that, respond a little more quickly and say, hey, I've seen this. I'm acknowledging that you've sent me this, and I'm acknowledging that I'm looking at it, but it may take me a few days, okay? Don't use your cell phone during the workday. I know, again, that's a difficult one, right? Because our cell phones are just such a big part of our identities now that it's hard not to have it out. But you guys should be fairly used to it now, because I think most instructors and professors don't like you to have them out in class. I know that I'm not a big fan of students pulling them out in the middle of class, so it should be the same thing when you get to work. And there are actually a lot of employers that will just tell you, I don't even want to see your phone out. If we see your phone out, you're going to be reprimanded for it. So this next one, arriving late, leaving early, staying out of work necessarily. So this one you're going to find is a little more flexible than what it sounds like. Typically speaking, especially once you get past your first year or so, employers are very flexible. That's why I encourage you guys to communicate with me when you are going to be late, or when you're not going to be around, or when something's going to be not going to be timely. And it's because I try to provide some flexibility for that, right? And it's the same way in a professional environment. You don't want to be consistently late, but everybody's late every once in a while. And you just got to let people know. You don't want to leave early every day, but every once in a while, it's okay. You know, typically you're going to be salaried, meaning you're not punching in and punching out. And as long as you get your work done, most employers are okay with you getting in a little late, or arriving a little, or leaving a little early. or taking a day. A lot of employers are doing mental health days now. I know even at the state auditor's office, in the government of all places, we were allowed to take some time off for mental health. So lying and dishonesty, yeah, just don't, right? Be an honest person, be a person of integrity. You have to be an effective accountant. If you're not, then we really don't want you in our profession, right? Try not to gossip, but I'll give you a little hint. If you do like gossip, go work for the government, be an auditor, and audit meeting minutes from city council. You'll get all the good gossip you want that way, okay? And it's other people's gossip, and you don't have to worry about getting involved in the drama. So, but don't gossip. Don't sleep on the job. I can't believe this is a point that I have to make, but do not take a nap in the middle of the day. My goodness. At the state auditor's office, we actually had, when we went remote because of COVID, we had several staff auditors that were reprimanded because they were just basically, and it's hard to envision, but they were no-showing, basically, right? We're all working at home, but nobody could ever get a hold of them. And it turns out, because they monitor you, right? They've got, your computers are encrypted and they know what you're doing every second of the day. Turns out they were taking naps, or they were just turning their computer on and like Homer Simpson in it with the perpetual motion bird, right? So these are things that you definitely don't want to be doing. These are things that could cost you your job. So if you are going to leave a position, which is going to happen, it just statistically, you guys will have 6 to 8 jobs, professional jobs over the course of your career. So at some point you are going to leave your position. You always want to provide a resignation. Always want to provide a resignation. Even when I transferred internally, when I worked for Mercy, I always gave them at least, I think the shortest amount of time I ever gave was 2 weeks. And it's because they needed me to start working pre-close calls. So I was only able to give them 2 weeks. My new department needed me on pre-close calls, so I was only able to give 2 weeks, and I needed to be caught up with the analysis. Other times I typically gave a month, though. I let my current department know, hey, next month you're not going to have me anymore. I'm going to be working a new job. So you always, always, always want to give advance notice that you're leaving. Talk with your supervisor, let them know personally, right? I know that for most jobs I've worked, I've grown pretty close with my employer. And so it was always nice to kind of give them that almost sense of closure, right? Hey, thank you so much for all the opportunities that I've had here. I've learned so much. And really, this job is what's provided me the opportunity to move on to something new and to learn more. So always want to do that. This last one actually happened to me at Mercy. This is what I was talking about. I got downsized. My department got downsized. I had no say in it. I was a good employee. I'd worked there for almost 12 years. I'd never been written up. Had a good track record with the right people, but my department got caught up in a downsize. So I did all of these things. I stayed as calm as I possibly could, considering I was losing my job of 12 years and had 2 kids or I had a kid and a wife to feed and car payments and house payments and all that good stuff. So you freak out a little bit, but you got to stay calm. You got to keep it composed. Negotiate a good severance package. This is something that's going to be foreign to a lot of you guys. It's going to be a new concept, but make sure you're getting paid for your value, right? I believe when I left Mercy, I ended up getting paid my full salary for about 5 months after I quit. So got my salary paid and I got my insurance costs covered for about 5 months while I looked for a new job. So you can negotiate that. Don't sign any paperwork until you're happy with what you're going to get. And then just assess your skills. Work on that resume. That was a good opportunity for me. Believe me, I had let my resume go a little bit. And when I got let go, when I got laid off, it was like, oh, crap. What do I do now? Now I've got to rebuild my resume. So just keep calm. It's going to happen. May not happen to all of you, but a good portion of you will eventually, will at some point be in that position. And just stay calm, make sure you get paid to your value, and assess your skills and where you can move in the future. So that's interviews. I know a couple of these lecture videos were a little long, but contact me if you've got any questions, any comments, any concerns, anything like that, and I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. Thanks, guys.